Joe Thomas in the morning, and our friends at the Free Enterprise Project. I know it gets confusing because we have the Free Enterprise Forum here in Charlottesville, and they were on yesterday's show. And then the Free Enterprise Project is a part of the National Center for Public Policy Research, and they are a group of people that just spend so much of their time getting on these boards so that they can get enough shareholder position to hold their feet to the fire over some of the mismanagement that they're doing at the corporate level. And Ethan Peck joins us from the Free Enterprise Project. Ethan, how are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So you guys have had a busy week, and I guess it continues later today of, going after a lot of different companies, and some of them are very notable, like an American Express, especially, and Progressive and Ford Motor Company, as well as Duke Energy. Talk about what this week has been like, first off, as an abstract of the work you do at the Free Enterprise Project to hold these people to the fire.
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of a normal week for shareholder season. Most
Mhm.
corporate shareholder meetings take place within from late April to mid to late June. And
Okay.
so they're sort of all jam-packed on top of each other. And we had a bunch this week. At each of them, we filed proposals, shareholder proposals that request different things of different companies. So like the one at Ford was a child labor audit auditing Ford, but requesting an audit of Ford supply chain.
Oh, for the electric vehicles, the EV.
Exactly.
Oh, because I'm like child labor on right, because all this stuff has to be mined by, the
Children
Chi-Coms.
and
Yeah.
yeah, in the DRC. And so I could tell you more about that. We had one
Uh,
at American Express regarding their use of merchant category codes to sort of flag gun and ammo stores with
real, hold it. Whoa, 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 whoa. That I thought
yeah.
that was just hypothetical stuff. Are they doing that?
They were doing it, and then they canceled their policy, but we
Okay.
preemptively submitted a shareholder proposal um, requesting them to analyze the potential of them doing this again,
Oh,
you
thank
know,
you.
because
Thank you for
yeah.
that. Well, and unbanking is one of these places where I watch all this ESG stuff really take that insidious march towards, being able to not just make me, but restrict my ability to purchase something, whatever it may be, whether or not they deem me qualified for it. That's when I saw American Express on this week's roster. I said, "Oh, um,
Yeah.
this is hot stuff," and the Ford EV stuff, and then today you've got a couple of filings for Friday's docket, including Intel and no, no, who is it? This is Duke Energy
Intel
today.
happened already. Duke Energy is coming up now. That's
Uh,
about their net zero commitments.
uh,
And then we have one tomorrow at Progressive about their diversity, equity, and inclusion policies.
now this is because Flo is a Caucasian woman, correct? No?
No, actually, it's because I attended their shareholder. They have a DEI policy like
Yeah.
every corporation, and so I attended their shareholder meeting in person in Ohio 2 years ago, and I asked the CEO point blank, why she values skin color at all,
It's an
and she said
insurance company. It's actuarial, right? I mean, it should just be
exactly,
numbers, right?
exactly, and what she said to me, it was kind of shocking. I don't think she realized she admit what she admitted, but what she said to me was, and I think there's a recording somewhere, but she said that in order we said Progressive, at Progressive, we want to be the number one insurance company. And in order for the insurance company to succeed, we need our employees to reflect our customers. In other words, to sell to black people or to sell to white people, we need to have the proportional amount of black people or white people. So I said, first of all, I replied to her, first of all, are you insinuating that people think a certain way because of their skin color? And secondly, why does a white person need to sell to a white person and a black person need to sell to a black person and vice versa? Isn't that the opposite of racial harmony? Um,
Yeah, it seems like segregation or at least apartheid to me, both
yeah.
words they love to bandy about on the American left. Ethan, and when you file these proposals, you do it in open board meetings, and
Mhm.
so these, as you said, these shareholder meetings are open in a lot of cases virtual. by doing so, you have now put them on notice that they have to either file a report, as you said, with Ford on their activities and their EV vehicles. What is the next step after you filed these proposals? What do you do at the Free Enterprise Project to make sure that these documents come out and then can be published for the car buying or credit card using public to look at?
Yeah, well, yeah, well, all of it's public. So
Hmm.
basically, the proposal process is in the fall, we submit a bunch of these proposals to companies, and because they don't want shareholders to vote on them, we try to negotiate a settlement with them, to get them to agree to something, to
Right.
just inch it a little bit towards neutral. And then if they don't, then it goes to the ballot. And since the BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Invesco, Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, the whole bunch of them,
The
uh,
gatekeepers.
yes, since they really control the voting, they're the most of the voters.
Hmm.
They because of how it works, if you buy if your pension fund is invested in an ETF, a BlackRock ETF, then even though you're, in that ETF, let's say there's Coca-Cola, Intel, I don't know, Ford, even though you're the shareholder of those companies, BlackRock is voting your shares. And so
Right.
this is why at all these companies, the top shareholders are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, but really they're just the institutional holders for the top shareholders. And so they vote your shares. And since they dominate the voting, so
Right.
basically we don't win the proposals, but we try to inch everything forward so that we negotiate from a stronger position the following year, and we get to speak at the shareholder meetings in defense of
Hmm.
the proposals, and this generates some stir.
Well, and it's a good question that popped in my head. Do you run into people, or after the fact, do people who are part of these shareholder meetings get in touch with you saying, "I had no idea. What do you mean they're not necessarily trying to increase the value of my shares
Yeah.
ardently? That there's some mysterious financial benefit to losing money all of a sudden that I didn't know about when I jumped into these funds."
Yeah, it, it it's absolutely true. That's the biggest thing with all this ESG stuff is that
Right.
it's not profitable. It violates fiduciary duty. It's at the expense of shareholder. It's basically just it's doing activism
Right.
at the expense of shareholder value because the grift benefits the boards and the CEOs and the executive suites.
And
So
they can claim that they were fulfilling their fiduciary duty because if I understand the SEC rules, they can claim, well, but we did this good stuff with the money we lost, therefore we didn't actually lose it. It's like they've invented some new mystical cryptocurrency where it doesn't actually exist, but we can say it does. It's like the carbon credits
yeah,
were. So this is shareholder season. How many companies are you in a position to hold their feet to, and what is to come as we get into June?
we submitted 60 proposals this year, um, which is a record for us. And
Hmm.
I think we're the second biggest shareholder proponent, the first being the left wing, as you sow. Um, there's going to be one more at Microsoft, so 61. And of those, the companies try to keep them off the ballot. So they don't want, they basically send a letter, often, they'll send a letter to the SEC saying, we intend to not include this shareholder proposal on the ballot. And then the SEC has to rule if the company has grounds to not let anyone vote on it or if they have to. And so the SEC is very
Oh,
biased against us.
yeah.
So about 10 of them were omitted. So about 50 are being voted on and this spring.
Well, and I try to explain this to folks frequently. Like, uh, there were ridiculous Supreme Court rulings, and follow me for a second on this. So, the Supreme Court under Oliver Wendell Holmes once said that the government sterilizing poor black women because they were, quote, institutionalized for a long period of time was constitutional. Of course, that's crazy. But the dissenting opinions in the Buck versus Bell opinion eventually wound up creating the ends of this kind of apartheid that had been created in the Jim Crow laws. So sometimes it's this incremental you get a proposal, you get people to vote on it, then you get people saying, "Well, hold on a second here. That thing we voted on, did you read that? That's crazy talk."
Yeah,
Is that what you see happening? And it must be very hard there at the Free Enterprise Project because it's like watching a trickle of water run over a rock and say, "Well, at some point it's going to erode it
yeah,
away." But
yeah.
do you feel like, sometimes you have to look back to where you were 10 years ago and where you are today, and just to see progress?
Yes and no.
Mhm.
I think that yes, because basically we lose the proposals, but no, because the overall activism filing these proposals when nobody else was pushing back, we were
Mhm.
for seven. I think FEP started in 2007, so for 17 years, FEP's been the only organization at these meetings. Now there are some more right wing or even just
Mhm.
neutral shareholders, and so there's a lot more pushback, and
Good.
companies are taking us more seriously, and we're suing the SEC and specific companies and coming to more negotiated compromises with companies than before. So
Good.
not things that I can speak about, but because of confidential agreements.
I
Um,
understand.
but we have pushed back on ESG successfully a few times in getting companies to walk back their commitments privately.
And I bring that up because many of my listeners now, viewers, get tired. It's a Friday. It's been a long week. President Biden says this, Kamala Harris is on TV saying that, the commentary at end, and it becomes almost wearisome. It becomes hard for them to continue to fight the fight because they feel like it's just overwhelming. And I remind them, like von Steuben said to Washington, you just don't have to, you don't have to win. You just have to not lose. And they will eventually lose their stomach for the fight, because this
Mhm.
is our country and they're the occupying force.
Yep.
And that's why I asked that, to give them that feeling, that strap to hang on to, that there is, even if it's slow and incremental, movement going.
Yeah. There's movement going. Um, they definitely have the power.
I know.
But it's I think it's the right thing to do. We never request companies to adopt any right of center views. Never tell them to push anything conservative.
Right.
We just tell them to stay out of it altogether, to be neutral. We do it in a legal means via the shareholder proposal process, and the law's on our side. These companies are not abiding by their fiduciary duty, but a lot of times what the law is and how is really how it's enforced. And
Mhm.
so just like the Civil Rights Act uh, made discrimination based on race illegal in the 1960s
And
and
here we are
destroyed the
again.
Constitution.
We
Good.
thought until they came back with
Exactly.
a new way to brand it. Well, yeah, talk about the Duke Energy, because you're talking about their decarbonization rules and what your
Mhm.
proposal for them for the decarbonization rules. I mean, it seems, and anyone I talk to, so they're going to do what? At the
Yeah.
same time, we're facing these mandates. We were just talking about it earlier in this week. The mandates on electric vehicles are going up by 26 and 27 in some states. Uh, the grid can't afford it, yet Duke has got a plan to decarbonize. Talk about, the things that should be just common sense before people start to see them out in the plain sunlight, Ethan.
Yeah. I mean, what's Duke Energy, in the name,
Yeah,
is an energy company. So
you
for
think.
them for them to demonize the most reliable sources of energy and commit, they actually have a policy to commit to decarbonization and net zero. I think it's by 2050.
Mhm.
That's running the company into the ground.
So
So
how much of this is, their own idea, and how much of it is just to be right with the Securities and Exchange Commission? Because we've talked about the SEC in the past, you and Scott and I have talked about, how the SEC is really the stick that's
yeah,
hanging over their head, while the president and the administration holds the carrot of, whether it be subsidies or grants or whatever it may be that their particular carrot is. But the stick is really the SEC saying, listen, you need to do it this way or we're going to whack you.
Yeah.
most of these companies would not necessarily just think to do this if it wasn't for this regulatory capture, would they?
I think it's that and the fact that BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, ISS, Glass Lewis, these are so that's the asset manager and the proxy advisory services are have voted radicals onto the boards of these companies and demand of them to partake in ESG if they want to remain in the assets, the
Oh, I see.
exchange traded funds.
Well,
And so
go ahead. No,
yeah, no. So essentially, if a company, not many people are sitting there, retail investors saying, "I want to invest in Duke Energy." You know, some people buy Apple, Microsoft stock, Tesla,
that may be,
but
but yeah.
yeah, some people, well, you're right, but most people, most retail investors are not sitting there saying, "I want to invest in Duke Energy." A lot of these companies, in order to remain in the in the ETF funds,
Yeah.
which are, basically pension funds are
Right.
being
Yeah.
invested.
That's what our 401ks and our, that's
Exactly, exactly. So to remain, they
Roths.
have to abide by the ESG requirements. That's
Mhm.
what Larry Fink talked about, forcing behaviors, because
Right.
it's and so it's that and the regulatory capture. I think there's a sort of uh, uh, C-suite coup
Mhm.
and board coup in addition to the regulatory capture.
Is there, could there be, and I mean, I'm talking about in a land far, far away. Is
Hmm.
there a revolutionary way where these investors, where, BlackRock doesn't have any power if they don't have our money to invest in these companies. So we take away their
Yeah.
power if we take away their money. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, uh, Anywhere where people could go to invest where it circumvents BlackRock and all of these other trust funds where incestuously they all have the same people on their board. So it's like, hey, this is the meeting of this, and then one guy gets up and leaves the room, and now it's a meeting of someone else because
Yeah.
the two seats changed, that kind of thing. Are there investment places, are there vehicles where somebody wanted to make their 401k, build their retirement nest egg, that kind of thing, that would keep it from getting into the hands of these shadow figures, the
Yeah.
World Economic Forum types?
Yeah, I would say three things. So first of all, I would say, as much as you can, and just invest on your own. Buy as a retail investor, don't buy an exchange traded fund. If you're going to, Strive offers products that it basically they offer the same ETFs that BlackRock offers, only they vote in a different way. And
Okay.
so Strive is a good option. And the third option is just having states divest from BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. At least red states started to, and that pressures them to walk back
Oh.
some of their ESG commitments because most of this money is not just, me buying $500 worth of a BlackRock ETF.
Mhm.
It's state pension funds.
I hadn't thought
So
about that. That's a
yeah,
great point because that's a
yeah,
huge, huge pile of money, even as badly kind of
that's the bulk of
mismanaged
it.
as,
Yeah,
the Virginia, VRS has always been a kind of, it's been quiet around the VRS for about 5 years now. Somebody should go kick a door over there or whatever. But anyway,
yeah.
Ethan, thank you for everything. What's coming up next week for the Free Enterprise Project?
Oh, I gotta check my calendar real quick. I believe BlackRock is next week.
Oh boy,
Um,
fun.
yeah, we have
They're circling the Death
AT&T.
Star.
Yeah, AT&T, Home Depot, CVS, and one of the big ones this year, Boeing.
Oh yeah, that's it. They've
Yeah,
had a tough year. Maybe you might get a friendly ear there. It's been a tough year for Boeing.
yeah. Well, our
That's
proposal there is specifically about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Very timely.
good. Very good. Ethan, thank you so much. Nationalcenter.org, Free Enterprise Project. You have a wonderful weekend and thanks for joining us.
You too. Thanks a lot.